In this episode, Darrell visits with Utah artist Rick Kennington.
And today on It's Art, Let's Talk About It, we're joined by our friend Rick Kennington, Utah painter. And we're so excited to have you, Rick, join us on the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Darrell. It's a real honor.
Let's start by asking that question I think is in the back of a lot of people's minds, and that is, are you one of those guys like my friend Jack Sorensen, the CA artist, who told me once he knew he was going to be a painter from the day he was born, from 3 years old? Or are you one of those people who it developed over time? How did you get to a point where you decided, I'm going to be an artist?
I didn't realize that you could be like an artist and make a living. Growing up. I,
I'm making a living at this? My God.
and they had art in school, but I just remember being in like fourth grade. And I remember my older sister was drawing some pictures on the kitchen table and completely fascinated with her skills. She's 4 years older than I am. And so I just remember just thinking how amazing it was. And I tried just watching her the way she did it. And I tried doing it myself. I had a picture, just like a school picture of myself, and did a self-portrait drawing, fourth grade.
Yeah.
And I took it to school, and I remember my teacher just taking it and thinking it was amazing and seeing her reaction. And she went and made photocopies and distributed it to other teachers in the school. And so that was the first time I realized, oh, I'm acknowledged for something that I'm good at. And so that was like the starting point of me understanding, hey, this is something that I can get behind. But all through high school, I was always into art, and I credit a lot to my art teachers and in school, and they really paved the way for me. And but it was always, I've always loved drawing and sculpting. I did a lot of sculpting in high school, but I never touched a paintbrush until college.
Really?
Yeah. So.
And that's in Utah.
Yep. Yeah. At the Salt Lake Community College of all places. And I have no money. I'm young, and teacher sends out a list of all the supplies that's needed, and I go spend pretty much all my money on art supplies. And I had an idea of drawing, but man, painting was a whole new thing. But I'm stubborn, right? My paintings were not good, but I was stubborn enough to keep at it and keep trying until I got the hang of it. But it took a very long time. But that's how it started, my love of art and painting, for sure. But I've always looked up to these great artists and thinking, man, I would love to be something like that one day. And but I keep at it. I feel like I'm just starting.
Yeah. I talk to artists all the time who've been doing it 50 years. What's your best painting? It's my next one, right? Because I'm getting better. I think I might actually be able to make a living at this.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
One day I'm going to be able to make a living.
One day I'm going to be able to make a living at this, yeah. But was art what you had decided in college that you were going to do, or was there another career path that finally in art was a transition at some point?
Art was more of a transition. I had a full-time job, and I got married young, had kids, and so I need to get food on the table. And
what were you doing? If you mind me asking?
Yeah, I was in parks maintenance, parks and rec.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a great job. In the last 6 years, I've been able to really start moving my work and really started to do things with it. And I've been doing it for 20 something years, but I'd say the last 8 to 6 years, it's been something that's been more of a professional, I guess you could say.
We have a lot of people who like to listen to the podcast, and they're waiting on this moment. And that is that moment where we say, if you want to play along, you want to see Rick's work, in addition to the 2 or 3 pieces we'll put on our website and are currently on our website. How do they find your work? Is it rickkennington.com?
Yep, that's my website, rickkennington.com. Sometimes I'm slow at getting latest pieces on there. Probably the best format is Instagram.
Okay.
I tend to put most of my work on Instagram. at least once a week, a couple times a week. That was what I.
We have a lot of people say that. A lot of artists will say that. We want the person sitting at home with their laptop in their lap. They've got 3 or 4 things going. They're listening to this podcast and they're going, "What kind of art does he do?" And they'll get in
Mhm.
there, hang out
Yep.
rickkennington.com and find it. That's KENINGTON, right?
Yep. And I believe the Instagram is just at Rick Kennington. So if people are interested, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll have pictures on our website as well. But you'd say the last 6 years, there was a got to be a moment where you say to yourself, I can do this. I'm going to do this full time and devote my life and career and my
Yeah.
family's well being to it.
Well, really got to credit my wife because she could see my potential. I couldn't quite see it as much as she could, in my opinion. And she could see my drive and my love for artwork. And man, she would just really get after me. And there was a workshop for an artist that I just absolutely admired. And she said, you need to take this workshop. But it was at it was a good travel and it was a pricey location. And I was just like really reluctant at doing it. And she says, you have to do it. So she made me do it. And God, it was just one thing that led to another. And her continually supporting me and helping me and encouraging me, I think made the big difference. And
You remember who the workshop was with?
that's Jason Rich
Really?
in
Yeah.
Montana.
Yeah.
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 So
And one of the great painters. And yeah, you can, and I see a little bit of his influence in your style.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. And Jason is a great guy and he's an amazing painter, super, super talented. But yeah, I've been following his work for a very long time. He's inspired my work for sure. Um, but yeah, as well as a bunch of artists has been very inspiring for me.
Who do you think, if you had to shout out, who were your early influences in addition to Jason?
Oh boy. Yeah, and you know what? I remember being in my young 20s and like walking into Legacy Gallery in Jackson Hole and just being like, I could have spent multiple days in there just
Yeah.
studying everything I see and just
Yeah.
love the work. But I would say Martin Greeley, Grant Redden, Jim Norton. Boy, there's so many. Um, Chad Poppleton.
Oh, a lot
And
of CA influence there. A lot of Cowboy Artist of America influence.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Bill Anton, even though he's not in the CA, but
Yeah.
his work's always inspired me. And yeah, and then you have like landscape painters that I've really admired as like Clyde Aspavig, Scott Christensen, things like that. But yeah, and then there's just so many other artists that I don't paint, but man, I just admire their work. But even though is terrible for me because I get so addicted to it, I just look at so
Rabbit
much
hole for me.
work.
Yeah, I just go down rabbit holes all day long.
And it's good and bad. It's bad because it can suck up a lot of time, but it's great because man, I've been opened up to so much art and so many influences, and I've learned so much. And um, anyways, I could go on and on about all the artists that I love and admire. So
How would you describe your art? Western, obviously, is part of the genre.
yeah.
Is it more figurative, loose? You
Mhm.
you tell me. How would you describe your art for people who
When I first was starting out, I was very timid and very tight in my work. I'd spend a long time on paintings and really try to get every little bit of detail in. And I'm still not satisfied with my work. But back then I was just really hard on myself. But I was just always drawn to artists that could paint accurately, that representational art, but do it in a way where it looks effortless or looks like the least amount of brushwork as possible, but still create something that is very recognizable and accurate and just pleasing, right? And I've really had to work at that. I really had to loosen up, and that's a real skill to go from being real tight to a looser painting. And I'm still just scratching my head at times and working at it and trying to figure that out. Yeah, sorry, I'm going down a rabbit hole, but in a nutshell, yeah, I would say I'm more of a I try to tend to paint looser, more painterly, but still a very accurate depiction of the Western life.
I've seen some commissions that you've done, portraits, things like that. You've done work that's, I guess, not your fine art that we think of. Subject matter, if you could paint one thing, I guess the better question is, what's the one thing you have to paint?
I love painting the horse.
Yeah.
I just love it, and I think the reason why is because I don't feel like I feel like there's still so much more that I need to do to get to the point of being confident that I can paint horses, right? I feel like I'm just starting, and every day I'm learning something new on painting horses, you know, and that's what I love. I love the challenge. I love um, it's just something in me, you know. I would like to try to get better at land. Honestly, I'd like to get better at painting everything, landscapes, but I don't know. Yeah, I guess to answer your question quickly, yeah, it would be the horse for sure.
The horse. What about
Yeah.
cowboys? Cowboys or Indians?
Both. Love painting both, honestly. It's just it's just fun, and it's a passion for sure.
What about structures? Are you one of those guys that wants to leave out the structure and let the landscape tell the story? Or I've seen structures in your work, but if that your perfect painting, is it a cowboy and Indian confrontation on the plains, or is there a downtown scene involved somewhere?
That's a good question. And man, I really admire cityscape artists. Like I could look at that stuff all day and it blows my mind on how well cuz and you could get caught up in all the details of painting structures and details in that, but the ones I really admire are the ones that can leave out a lot of that of the detail, leave out a lot of the chatter and just hone in on the small parts that really complete those paintings. And I'd love to do that sometime is get more into painting cityscapes and things like that. But yeah, in my work, I really would love to. What I like is to have people look at it and be able to relate to it and have it touch something inside them, something that
Yeah.
speaks to them. One of my favorite things is when people look at my work and they say, "Yeah, I've been there," or "That that speaks to me," or "That I can feel what is being communicated here through this piece." And it's going to be different for all kinds of viewers, but I think that gives me the most joy is being able to uh, get to the point where people, viewers, can look at it and relate to it in some sense. Where a lot of it is, oh, my grandfather grew up on a farm, and that looks just like his horse and the way he rode. And that just means everything to me. And that's how it is for me too, admiring my grandfather and his horses. And but that's what I aim for is something that evokes emotion in people and um, where people can actually look at it and it spurs up maybe nostalgic feelings or just that sense of belonging somewhere, I think.
I don't want to pigeonhole the work too much, but it's also helpful for people, listeners, to understand a time period. I mentioned my friend Herman Walker, who's a painter here in Texas, and he paints mostly contemporary today's cowboys.
Mhm.
They've got a watch on their wrist and wearing a baseball cap, right? He paints those guys, and then other people paint the 20s, the 1900s to the 40s. Other
Mhm.
people stay before 1900 and paint
Yeah.
immediately post Civil War kind of situation. Do you have a place you find yourself gravitating to, or is it just all over the board?
I'm just all over the board, and because both fascinate me, and a lot of my contemporary work has come from models from some of my friends, and I admire their work and the way they ride and their horses um, and the ranches that they work, and so I that's a big part of me and me growing up helping my grandfather on his ranch, and that was always been an impact of me. So I like that contemporary uh, cowboy scene.
Yeah.
But and also I come from a rich heritage of pioneer stock, and I love learning about history and Utah history. And so that the 1800 cowboys and things like that, I really enjoy that too. And so that's also been inspiring for me. And you know, and a lot of it, frankly, I take a lot of reference photos of cowboys and things like that, and I'll go through it, and sometimes it is just what the lighting and what the design and the gestures of models and how the light hits the horses and the color. And if you can orchestrate a nice design and composition with and focusing on good value, color, and range, like sometimes that's what I'm looking for is something that just really works in a aesthetic manner.
For anybody just joining us, we're on It's Art. Let's talk about it. Our guest today is Rick Kennington, Utah painter, good friend of the Museum of Western Art. And Rick, you got some works in our current exhibition, the 40th annual Roundup exhibition and sale. We appreciate your support in that matter. And let's tell people again where they can find your work, rickkennington.com.
Yep. Yep, that's my website.
And then on
And
Instagram at,
it's at Rick Kennington.
okay, just that simple, Rick Kennington. So I want to make it easy for people to go out there and look at your work and acquire your work and appreciate it like we do here at the Museum of Western Art. So
Yeah, thanks, Darrell. Appreciate that.
talk about your day. Are you one of those guys that gets up first thing every morning, paints and paints all day, or is it a morning routine or an afternoon routine, or does it vary day to day? And for
Yeah.
those young painters out there who are listening, do you paint every day?
No, it's very sporadic. But I like getting up early. I'm a morning person and I'll get to it. And but I really don't put brush to canvas more than like an hour or an hour and a half at max because it's draining on me mentally. Like I'm really focused and honed in, and I don't know if I just need to build up more stamina or what, but but I'll take breaks, get some exercise, and do stuff around the house, get back to it. And yeah, I don't have a rigid routine at all. It's pretty much all over the place.
And that's been fascinating for me as I interview artists and art people. Um, everybody's day varies. I talked to an artist recently, and he treats it like an 8 to 5, and he is going to take a 10-minute break at 10 o'clock and lunch, and then a 10-minute break at 2 o'clock, and at 5:30 the whistle blows. And then I've talked to other people who say they may wake up in the middle of the night and go to the easel and paint from 2 to 6, and
I've
it
done,
just
yeah,
varies.
I've done middle of the night painting as well. You can't sleep. Yeah. No, yeah, I'm pretty sporadic for sure.
Are you what you would consider a fast painter, slow painter?
I would say I'm a fast painter. I've had other artists say that I put work out pretty quickly, so I guess I am in that regards. But and I tend to paint a lot of smaller pieces, and yeah, I can look at something um, and really try to hone in on minimal brush strokes and try to not noodle is what a lot of artists say. Sit there and just really work at the detail. I'm more of a stand back and try to put one big brush stroke down, look at it, see if it's in the right spot, and move on to the next.
Do you work on more than one work at a time, or are you one of those guys that has one
Yeah,
and that's it? That's all you do?
I usually have three going at a time. One's all three are at different stages. One's almost done, one's kind of in the middle, uh, and then one's maybe just beginning. And then I have hundreds and hundreds of sketches and drawings and ideas that I'm trying to work on, um, and then sometimes you come across something that's okay, yeah, that works, and let's try to make this little sketch into a painting. So
Do you
yeah,
go
so
to do you go to a lot of photo shoots, reference materials? How do you get your inspiration for what you're gonna paint?
yeah, I've been to few artist shoots, few photo shoots in South Dakota, and they're just a blast and they're fun, and it's fun to meet the other artists that show up, and it's fun to see their work that they are able to retract from those outings, and been to other workshops where models are hired and we're able to do photo shoots as part of the workshop. And then a lot of, like I said earlier, friends are willing to pose and help me create some ideas on some paintings too. So it's from a variety of areas where I gather these references.
You like painting historical scenes?
Sometimes. A few years ago, I was really fortunate. I painted a museum here in Utah commissioned me to do a painting of it's called the Bear River Massacre, and it's of the Shoshone tribe, a band of Shoshones up in Cache Valley. That there was just a horrible massacre that was hundreds of these band members were murdered, and there's not very much information regarding it. And so they were able to commission me to do a picture, and I was able to complete a painting and met with one of the tribe's descendants. He helped. I met him on the site and he walked me through the story behind it. And that was a great honor to be able to create that and have it displayed at the museums. But yeah, I'd like to do more of that too. But that was probably the most significant historic type painting that I've done.
Most of the work, a lot of the work I've seen of yours has been a smaller canvas. Yet for
Mhm,
our exhibition, you did paint some medium-sized pieces, some
mhm.
24-36 kind of
Yeah.
situations. What's the smallest you paint? What's the biggest you paint? Does it matter? Does it all over the board?
Yeah, it's pretty I'd say the smallest I do is like a little 6 inch by 6 inch piece. And those are real fun because I feel like there's not as much invested in it. And so you can really just relax. And if you mess it up, you're not out much time, which I think helps make a nice piece because I'm able to relax and not stress about the time invested in it. Where the bigger pieces is a little more stressful because it's going to take a lot longer. You're investing a lot more time, and so you're a little more tight and uptight about it, and which I think can get in your head. And sometimes it's harder to get better results with larger pieces in that sense. Man, I don't know. That's just my theory, but it seems like smaller pieces sometimes turn out better. And I think it's because I'm able to relax more and just experiment and paint without worries and without stressing and shows.
In addition to the Museum of Western Art Roundup exhibition that you do, what other shows? Where can people find your work out there?
Every year I go head up to Montana for the March in Montana art show. Been in it's the Out West Art Show, the Heritage Inn, and I'm back in it this 2024. I'll be there.
And they
Um,
moved that back to March. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the auction's back in March, so that'll be great. So looking forward to that. I've done that every year. Uh,
I was there for a number of years as the director of the C.M. Russell Museum, and
oh yeah,
I spent my 4 years there trying to get it moved to the summer because March is so cold and so nasty.
yeah,
And yet they did that right after COVID, and now they're moving it back to March. And I think that they're probably right. It's a unique time in Montana, and it really makes it focus on the art. And so I was pleased to see them go back to their tradition.
yeah. It's gonna be great.
You
Yeah.
do, you do one of the studio rooms at the Heritage.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's
Yep.
always a lot of great artists up there as well.
Yeah. So it's an honor to be part of that, and I look forward to that.
In addition to that, and the Museum of Western Art, other shows.
Other shows, last year I did the NFR show in Cowboy Christmas down in Vegas. That was a lot of fun. I just got entered into the Coors Western Art Show,
Okay.
which will be in January. And other than that, it's just been smaller shows here and there. There's one every year we have here in Utah at the Zions Bank, which it's been surprisingly amazing, good show for artists. And but yeah, not too many shows. Um,
What's next for Rick Kennington? Where are you headed with this career of yours? I think it's starting out brilliantly. I love the work. It's gotten a lot of positive response. Where do you take it?
right now, my main focus is I really want to get better as a painter. And I'm sure that's cliche. I'm sure every artist their mantra, right? But it truly is. I feel like I am literally just starting, and so I feel like I got a long road ahead of me, and I'm getting on that road, and I'm gonna do everything I can to try to be as good of a painter as I can, and so it's gonna take a lot of learning, more workshops, more studying, more practice, and I feel like the more I delve into it, more opportunities arise, and I mean, everything to this point, it hasn't been planned, right? It's almost the more I work at it, the more I hustle at it, things just arise, opportunities arise, and I just hope to be prepared for when those opportunities do arise that I can be ready for them. Whether it's creating really good work where I can enter in bigger shows and or other different galleries and things like that. I don't know. I think the main point from this point on is I'm going to try to paint horses better, paint cowboys better, and learn design and composition and values and color, and just there's endless amounts of studying that I can improve upon. And so
Was it
that's
philosopher Yogi Berra that said, "The harder I work, the luckier I get"?
yeah,
You're gonna just keep working and work at it, right?
yeah, you can't sit down and be like, here's all the little steps that I'm going to take. You can, and you can help guide you, but really things just happen the more that you just keep at it and learning from other artists and building relationships with artists and collectors and galleries and shows. It's so fun. It's fun too. I'm really enjoying the friendships and all the learning and growth and stretching, and it's real fun. It's a
Yeah,
fun
you
journey.
wanna
It's
you
not easy. It's not easy. It's challenging,
right.
right? It's not a walk in the park. It is very
Yeah, and you and I talked about it when
challenging.
we first met. One of the things that I love so much about being in a museum of my size, right, the Museum of Western Art, is that getting a chance to meet, if you will, new or younger artists and watching their careers develop and
Mm,
giving them an opportunity to be in a major show, a good
yeah.
show. And I think that's always fun. And so it struck a chord with me when you and I first met about you come up and say, "Hey, here's my card. Here's who I am," and take a look at my work. And we did. And now you're in the Museum of Western Arts Roundup
Yeah.
exhibition every year. We appreciate that support. This is your opportunity to do a shout out. You mentioned the wife earlier and her influence in getting it all started. Talk about those people who are important to you, and you want to say thanks. This is the opportunity to do that.
Obviously, my parents, they were always supportive of me. Sometimes I feel like they were a little too supportive. I was the youngest of 6 kids, and I think they were just, just like, "Whatever you wanna do, that's great." And they would buy me the art kits and drawing kits and books and stuff when I was growing up, and so they were very supportive. Um, yeah, so shout out to my parents and God, all the teachers and other artists that I have admired that have welcomed me into their homes and studios and been able to guide me and mentor me and point out all the things I'm doing wrong has been amazing. I really appreciate all those in my life doing that and helping me and supporting me. God, I could go on and
Yeah,
on
no, it's a
all
tough.
day on, on,
You already
on
mentioned the misses and the children, family's important to you.
yeah, yeah, my kids, yeah, everyone's been very supportive. It's been a lot of the collectors too, people who've bought my work early on when I was just starting and I was selling at very low prices was enough to keep me buying supplies and enough to keep boosting my confidence to keep going. Man, I really gotta thank those early collectors, and they know who they are. And just really appreciate them, and yeah, I'm just so grateful for so many people in my life that have helped me to get to this point. And so
So if it would be safe to say we're going to see a lot of Rick Kennington in the next number of years.
I hope so for sure. I hope so.
For those of you listening to the podcast, it's rickkennington.com or at Rick Kennington on the social media. We encourage you to go out there and look at the work, get to know the man, get to know the artist. Rick, it's been fun getting to know you, and it's been fun having you on the podcast. And we at the Museum of Western Art, we wish you all the success in your career. People want to see your work through October 28th, and I don't know when this podcast will air, but our catalog will stay up, and that's got works on 2 pages. And got your work on it. We encourage people to go out there and do that, and we hope we see you for a lot of years coming up over the next lifetime of your career. It's going to be fun to watch.
Thanks, Darrell. And I appreciate all that you've done, and you've really helped me and kind of further my career. And much thanks to you for that. Appreciate it.
We appreciate you guys and the support the artists give the museum. And without artists, there would be no museums. There would be no galleries. And I just can't imagine trying to make my living sitting down out of my doing what you do, right? I tell artists that all the time. It's an amazing thing for me to watch.
And that means a lot to artists is
Yeah.
people that appreciate the arts. And so it's what keeps us going for sure. So it's much appreciated.
One more thing, it's museumofwesternart.com. We're located at 1550 Bandera Highway here in Kerrville, Texas, in the beautiful Texas Hill Country. We encourage you, Rick, and all of the artists to come by and see us. We want people to be involved in the life of this museum. Of course, it's rickkennington.com or at Rick Kennington on the social media. And Rick, thanks for joining us today on It's Art. Let's talk about it.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Darrell.
All right.
This is Tom Fox again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of It's Art. Let's talk about it. If you're in Kerrville, I hope you'll drop by the Museum of Western Art. It is consistently rated one of the top 5 Western art museums in the United States. It's Art. Let's talk about it. It's a production of the Texas Hill Country Podcast Network. If you've enjoyed this episode, I hope you'll subscribe, rate, and review wherever great podcasts are listened to. I hope you'll join us again on our next episode where we visit with Nebraska artist Rachel Brownlee.